I'm often asked why I don't farm like Joel Salatin, Judy, Mark Shepard, Gabe Brown, or a host of others in regenerative agriculture. I don't farm just like any of those individuals, and you should not either, and here's why. So the reason for this video is because one of the commenters was being helpful and suggested that I check on Judy's bale unroller with an ATV. I also had some visitors to the farm that were shocked when they saw the tractor rut and the ruts from the truck that got stuck while they were delivering hay, and they suggested that I try unrolling and several other things as well. We don't have a reliable working ATV on the farm at the moment, and frankly, I have different goals. The reality of regenerative farming is there are a host of different strategies that work in a host of different ways. Before I can answer the question, why aren't you farming like Judy, Joel Salatin, or any of the others, I have to explain what my purposes for this field are. So long term, my goal in this 10-acre field, it's divided into two paddocks, paddock A and paddock B. If you saw the Regenerate Soil Without Heavy Equipment video, I'll put a link to it in the description if you haven't seen it. But if you saw that video, this is what I call paddock A. It's where we're feeding cows over winter, and paddock B is over here where you can see the pigs in the background, way back there. Anyway, the long-term goal for this field is to divide it into several different paddocks that'll include sections of shade in the woods and then long strips where we can plant forage crops for our livestock. The plan is to have cool season crops growing out here for the pigs to forage on. Things like winter peas, brassicas like purple top turnips, kale, forage rape. All those types of brassicas are high protein feeds, as are the legumes like clovers and Austrian winter peas. This will allow us to drastically reduce the amount of grain that we have to feed our pig. During the summers, frankly, it's going to be too hot for the pigs to be grazing out here, even with strips of shade in each paddock in the back. During the summer, we can plant things like sorghum sudan grass. The warm season cover crops like sorghum sudan grass, hybrid pearl millet are phenomenal forages for cattle. They produce some of the best grass-finished beef. They also sequester a world of a lot of carbon into the soil through their root exudates, and they produce a lot of dry matter per acre. And so in addition to improving the soil, they also provide outstanding livestock feed for the cattle that we'll be finishing out here. The biggest hindrance that I have in this 10-acre field, planting in these paddocks, is incredibly difficult. We can rent a no-till drill through our soil extension service. Last time we did that, it didn't work out very well. I'm not the most skilled operator of no-till drills, and so it results to get a good stand of our forage crops. Really what we've got to do is to find a way to break up the side. Most of what's out here is broom sedge. There's also dog fennel, and then there's Vasey's grass. So to break up the side that's out here, once there's a little bit more bare ground, a lot of times you can overseed the paddocks themselves. What I'm doing is I'm using the pigs to root up the side. When I move these pigs to the next paddock, I'll scatter either winter rye or ryegrass and some type of legume so that the pigs plant it into the ground. So you can use pigs to plant the seed. You just broadcast the seed about twice the normal rate just before you move the pigs. The pigs will eat some of the seed and then they plant a lot of it. So back to paddock A now, where I'm planning on bale grazing. Again, in an ideal world, if we had to feed hay, we would unroll the hay either with a tractor or a hay bale unroller that you pull behind an ATV. We don't have a good ATV here on the farm, but it's got some mechanical issues. And frankly, I just don't have time to unroll 2 or 3 bales of hay every day. The reason I've got the hay set out here is I'll still put up the electric polywire. In 10 minutes every 2 or 3 days, I can give the cows access to a new area, and it'll reduce the amount of time that I have to spend dramatically. In this 5-acre paddock, we're going to have cows that are feeding in it, and by the time they get finished eating the hay, they're going to be walking back and forth, they're going to be trampling the sod, and it is going to be an absolute muddy mess anyway. So the trampling effect on the field is going to have some soil compaction issues. The worst issues will be where the tractor ruts are, but that's just one area along the edge of the fence where the tractor ruts will be. The rest of it won't be quite as bad. We use the small tractor when we put out hay. It has wider tires, so the weight that it places on the ground is not quite as bad. But the beauty of what's going to happen with this field is when the cows graze it, they are going to be trampling a lot of the sod and doing damage. If this were a good pasture that was very productive, we would not be doing this here. But this is a pasture that produces mostly broom sedge. But remember, the long-term goal for this pasture is to create an environment where we can plant annuals easily without a whole lot of tractor work. So once the cows trample all of this ground, the small seeds that we broadcast onto the field, whether it be ryegrass or even cereal rye and clovers, those will take root and grow in that wet soil contact without having to be disked or tilled in. And that saves us a world of a lot of equipment costs. Most importantly though, with a sorghum sudan grass warm season cover crop mix planted in May or so, it is amazing the benefits that it produces to the soil. The roots on the sorghum sudan grass go down well below 2 feet, especially after they're grazed. Some people say 3 or 4 feet. All I know is I've tried digging them up several feet, a couple feet down, and there's still roots growing down. In addition to the sorghum sudan grass, that warm season cover crop mix includes hybrid pearl millet, sunflowers, okra, buckwheat. Then it includes some legumes like a soybean and a cowpea. Every single one of the crops in that mix, with the exception of buckwheat, produces deep tap roots that go down and they break up compaction. And so they'll do more good in this field, and the hay will. We won't have to feed hay in this paddock again, because once we start planting annuals, we don't have to use the equipment like the discs and the tillers to try to plant them. All we've got to do is broadcast the seed with a broadcast spreader. And so that goes very fast, especially when we have pigs in the paddock or cows in the paddock that'll help reseed it when it's time to reseed it with our cool season crops. Muddying up this field and mucking up this field is less than ideal, but it's imperative to realize that many regenerative farmers farm on a very small scale. They're doing it part-time. They don't have large budgets. My part of the farm is just a part-time job. It produces no viable income at this point, in large part because every bit of profit that we're making goes to do more cross fencing for pigs, more cross fencing for cattle, and that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to get the most benefit out of our soil with the least cost and use our livestock to do it. Many times people watch videos or read books from people like Gabe Brown and Judy. They take conferences and they read books and they watch movies like The Soil Will Save Us, and they see these perfect ideal ways that we can regenerate soil, and they work very, very well. The problem is, on a small scale, it's much harder to pay for those type of improvements. Realistically, purchasing a no-till drill on the income from this farm, I'm not talking about the profit, I'm talking about the gross sales from this farm. Purchasing a no-till drill that will do what we need to do will take years. Whereas for many much larger farmers like row crop farmers or anyone else, they may amortize the cost over several years, but they have the revenue in 1 year to be able to pay for it, whereas our total sales wouldn't pay for it. Regenerative farming practices, especially on a small scale, are not going to be perfect, especially when you compare them to people like Gabe Brown or Judy or so many others who are doing a lot of wonderful work. But do know this, that we are able to do things that they cannot do because we are on a small scale as well. We don't have the equipment to do no-till drill, and even though we have to drive tractors into our pastures, even though we have to trample our pastures a little bit to be able to plant instead of using an expensive no-till drill, we are able to do things like rescue 30,000 pounds of pumpkins from landfills, or reducing the amount of leaves and other carbonaceous materials that go into the landfill, or drastically reducing the amount of milk that goes into landfills or become environmental hazards, because we are able to bring them onto our farm, even though it costs a little bit of more time and money, whereas larger producers do not have the time, energy, or money to be able to do that. I hope this video helps explain why we do some of the things that we do in less than ideal conditions, but also know that we're able to do things that other farmers are not able to do because we are operating at a much smaller scale. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It'd help a lot. Subscribe to our channel and make sure you click that bell for notifications. Check out our other videos, and we'll talk to you later. Have a great day.